Welcome back. We have an opportunity to talk to our friend, the host of the SCO show, Aniello Piro. He hosts that with Chase Howell. And obviously, we're talking a little bit about the Buffs, but not in the way you're thinking, because Aniello, not only are you the right guy because you're the host of the SCO show, but you are, and even you are regretful about it, you are a lifelong Dallas Cowboys fan. And guess what? So we're talking about the rumor mill churning last night. Of course, Deion Sanders was sitting courtside at the Nuggets and the Mavs. The reports came out that the Jerry Jones of the Cowboys has approached Deion Sanders and that they are talking. So the question going forward, of course, is Deion Sanders going to jump to the NFL? I will say this. I think there are a lot of reasons to believe that this will not happen. But, Aniello, you're the Cowboys fan. It is not out of the question that Jerry Jones just does some crazy Jerry Jones things and says, here's $25 million a year, Prime, come coach my team. And at that point, you'd be crazy to refuse it.
Yeah, absolute pleasure to be on with you here, Mile High Sports today. And let me get a couple of things out of the way. I'm a fan by birth, not by choice. And I agree with you.
That's not a thing.
Yeah,
I always choose.
I'm loyal, man. You know, my dad raised me a certain way. I'm sticking with it. You know, I have a bunch of friends that have jumped off the bandwagon. They're all cowards. So, you know, I'm going down with my ship. But here's the thing. I don't think Deion's going anywhere. Like, let me just come out and say that right away. And I think the only way in which he would go to Dallas, and I'm not sure if there's any other head coaching options for him. The Giants could have been interesting, but obviously they're retaining Brian Daboll as their head coach. He wants to coach his kids. You know, he's been very adamant about that. And I just don't think Dallas is in a position. Now, it is Jerry Jones. He might make some Godfather type of offer to the Tennessee Titans to try to move up to number one and get Shador. But I do think that Coach Prime, I want him to stay. You know, it's been a blast covering him in Boulder, doing the SCO show on the YouTube channel, my boy Chase. Like, Coach Prime has been so incredible for Colorado football. I mean, you know it as well as I do. You know, Danny Bailey behind the glass knows it. Like, CU is borderline irrelevant before Coach Prime came here. So look, there's a lot of moving parts. We'll get into it here on this segment, but I want to get off the chest. I would be very, very surprised if Deion does end up jumping to the Cowboys. But as you said, it is Jerry Jones. So get your popcorn ready.
Yeah, I honestly think it's a little bit more of a 1 in 4 chance that he goes, simply because Jerry Jones could not care less about what he pays his coach, and it could just blow Sanders away with an offer. But the tricky part is Deion Sanders has talked about this and had an opportunity a few weeks ago, and you're absolutely right about coaching his sons. But the important part is he said sons, plural. Here's what Deion said on Good Morning America a couple weeks ago.
But is there a chance that you could head to the NFL?
I know where you're going. You try to go viral, right? Yeah. If I respond, you know we're going viral, right?
I know, right?
You know what? The only way I would consider is to coach my son. Not son. No. Sons. Okay.
I think we're going to go viral with that.
Yeah.
So that's not a no.
Well, I love Colorado. Now, I love my Buffaloes. I love everything that we're building. I love everything that we're doing, and I love Boulder, Colorado. I do.
Ignore the Dallas Cowboys colored suit that he was wearing at the time.
Good point.
Prior to that. But it was about sons. Now, look, the Cowboys could draft Shiloh Sanders. Any team can draft Shiloh Sanders. He's going to be a mid-round draft pick. You're going to be able to get him. But the idea that you're going to be able to land Shador, which is, of course, for the Cowboys, what they'd like to do is basically they'd like to reboot. Let's talk about why that's not possible right off the bat. And Aniello, you know this. Now, Sanders' contract, by the way, with the Buffs, 5 years, $29.5 million. They are in the process of renegotiating a new deal right now. The Buffs have an extension on the table for him. They are more than willing to build that out. So he knows that they'll be able to up the cost, get him more in line with the top coaches in college football. They've already paid him about $850,000 in other incentives and bonuses, some that were in his contract and some that were not in his contract, just trying to keep him happy. The contract buyout for the Buffs is $8 million. That's not going to dissuade a guy like Jerry Jones. But here's what might. Dak Prescott has a cap hit of $90 million next year. If you're going to be specific, 89.6, but $90 million. That is a third of the Cowboys cap. Dak Prescott will be 32 years old before next season starts. And by the way, as everyone goes, oh, well, they could trade Dak Prescott to the Tennessee Titans for the number 1 overall pick. Do the Tennessee Titans, who are looking to rebuild, want to add a 32-year-old quarterback with a $90 million cap hit coming into next year? I suspect they do not, especially given the options that they will have with the first pick in the draft. But more than that, the idea goes around. Danny and I were joking about it. Dallas offers Prescott and a handful of picks, and Tennessee gives the number 1 pick so they can pick Shadur Sanders. Who says no? I'll tell you who says no. Dak Prescott. He has a no trade.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. It really is. And I think there's a lot of factors here. And I think let's get this out of the way too. Coach Prime is a master at being in the public eye. And regardless if this is real or not, all it is adding leverage to him in his contract negotiations with Colorado. And I know Joel Klatt came out and said that he's got a pretty lucrative offer in front of him. Again, I do believe that Coach Prime wants to stay in Boulder with the Buffs doing his thing. And to your point about a potential Dak swap, the no trade clause is absolutely imperative to bring up. The one thing that I will say, let's take that out of it for a moment. Tennessee, in recent memory, less than 10 years ago, did trade the number 1 overall pick back when to the Los Angeles Rams, who ended up drafting Jared Goff. So it's not uncharted territory for this ownership group in Tennessee to try to make a move like that. I mean, it would be Dak this year's first and probably next year's first, kind of a comparable deal to what the Bears and Panthers did a couple of years ago, which ultimately landed Bryce Young in Carolina and Caleb Williams out there in Chicago. So look, here's the other thing. I mean, there's a lot of common connections too, right? Deion's from Dallas, lives in the Dallas area. Shador went to high school in Texas, was at the Mavericks game against the Nuggets last night. Not that I'm reading into that, and obviously, Jerry Jones and Deion Sanders show this affinity for each other that, maybe it works out one day. Right before I came on, though, James Palmer of Bleacher Report, he had a little segment that I was checking out, kind of giving his thoughts. Obviously, a guy that's well connected with the NFL, the collegiate ranks, all that good stuff. And he was saying how he's heard from one circle of people that this is very much a realistic possibility and people would not be surprised if this ends up happening. And then there's the other half which thinks this is just dust in the wind, right? So I don't think anybody knows really how to feel about this, but I will say this. If there's anybody that is crazy enough to make the Godfather offer, money-wise, compensation-wise, in desperation mode, for lack of a better phrase, someone who loves to make a splash, it's Jerry Jones. And regardless if this goes down or not, even if it's just a talking point, you know what this does? In the middle of the NFL playoffs, you flip on the 4-letter network, you flip on whatever sports show you want to watch or listen to.
ABC.
And what are they talking about?
That was Good Morning America.
I mean,
a sports show.
Yeah, he's a master of drawing attention, taking away attention from the NFL playoffs because of the thought of Deion going to the Cowboys. So look, like I said, there's a lot of moving parts. And the other thing that we have to talk about from Deion's perspective is, and I've questioned this with Chase on the SCO show, I know you and I have talked about it as well, where is Deion's heart at without his kids in Boulder? I believe he wants to stay there. I believe he wants to do everything he set out to do. But don't you lose maybe just a little bit of that will and desire when it's no longer Shador and Travis? Nothing against Caden Salter and Julian Lewis and all these great players that Coach Prime has brought in via the portal and via high school over the last 3 or 4 months now. But you do have to wonder, in the back of his mind, does not having his kids and Travis Hunter maybe impact his decision one way or the other?
Well, and it's tough because, quite frankly, no one's ever seen Deion Sanders coach a team that his kids weren't on, from high school
Exactly.
to Colorado. Nobody has. And it's one of the reasons I think that there are still a lot of questions about Deion Sanders as a head coach. And we understand that he's kind of more of the CEO coach, kind of the ringleader guy. And I do think it's realistic simply because Jerry Jones can back a Brinks truck up to Deion Sanders, and that might be enough money that you take it. But I think that Sanders understands. He's got an ego like you would expect. But I think he does understand he's not really an NFL coach. Think about what he's done well for the Buffaloes, right? Transfer portal. Okay. That doesn't exist in the pros. You have free agency, and maybe Deion Sanders' allure will get that, but now it's a business. Now it's a multi-million-dollar business. And your coach isn't necessarily bringing guys in unless and until they've maybe won a Super Bowl or two. Pro players aren't going to trip over themselves to just go play for Deion Sanders if there's a team that's better or closer to a title and where there's a better fit for them. So his skill there doesn't directly translate to the NFL. What he's done that I said has been so brilliant for the Colorado Buffaloes is set the example of saying that, look, you'd love to win a national title in Colorado, but the objective when he goes and recruits players is, look, I'm going to get you to play on Sundays in the NFL. We'd like to win the whole thing, but we're not bothered if you don't stay here for 4 years. We're not worried about that. You're supposed to come here, be good. We'll get you up to the NFL. That's Deion Sanders' brand. That goes away the second you're at the NFL. Now you get the players that you can get in the draft, or that you can get in trade, or that you can get in free agency. His ability to add, his ability to move a roster around and shuffle it to be what he likes is vastly limited at the NFL level. In other words, virtually everything that Deion Sanders is good at the collegiate level, and everything that makes him special to these recruits, that vanishes at the NFL level. And I think in the end, Deion Sanders does know that. The only question is, at a certain point, if Jerry Jones is going to pay you a number that even the top coaches in college can't even come close to, obviously you have to take a look at that, whether it's going to be successful or not. But I do think that in the end, it is more likely he comes back to Boulder with a slightly improved deal, because obviously he has the leverage to go to the NFL and the Cowboys. But you're right when you brought up the important point, Aniello. The idea of Deion Sanders as an NFL coach, we haven't heard a peep in the NFL about Deion Sanders at any of the other openings in the NFL. The Cowboys are the only one that he's even remotely been linked to, and it's in part because of what we talked about. He's had success at Colorado. He's made them relevant. But when you're talking about winning as a head coach, winning big time, and winning without your sons, Deion Sanders hasn't done either yet. NFL teams make that jump.
Yeah, no, for sure. And to, you made some good points there about what worked for Deion at the college level. And I don't disagree, but I'll be honest with you. I think that's as much. I mean, Deion Sanders is a powerful figure, a very powerful figure. And I think Deion, as great as he is in college with the recruiting and this and that, I think that's him playing the game. I haven't seen Deion Sanders fail really at anything. I mean, he was an all-time great player both ways, goes to, great on NFL Network as an analyst, goes to Jackson State, makes them relevant, brings game day down there for the first time ever, comes to Boulder, takes a 1-8 team from 4 wins to then double that in the next year. So if you're Deion Sanders, you also he believes in himself. I agree while his strengths are at the collegiate level. I don't think Deion Sanders looks himself in the mirror and is like, I can't do this at the NFL. I'm sure he gets fired up by the challenge as well. And so I don't know, man. I just think it's going to be interesting. And again, this would be a more real conversation if Dallas was in top 5 range and they had a little bit more leverage with that first round pick this year to try to make a move. But here's the thing. Deion's going to do what's best for Deion, and I want him here. Again, I want Coach Prime in Boulder. No ifs, ands, or buts about that. But if there's anyone who likes these larger than life concepts, it's Jerry Jones and it's Deion Sanders. And I watched the introductory press conference from Jerry and Deion back in, 96? Mm-hmm. And Deion said up there, he said, I'm paraphrasing, but he says, Mr. Jones paid me a lot of money to do an extraordinary job. And what did he do? He went out there and did that job. I think Deion likes the challenge. But again, I think the only way this is even possible is if they get Shedeur. Shiloh, you can get him in whatever round you want to get him. But I don't think he's going to the NFL to potentially coach against his own son. So I think that is the common denominator. If Dallas can figure out a way to get the number 1 pick or the 2 pick, because apparently some of these teams are enamored with Cam Ward, maybe the conversation opens up. But at the end of the day, I'd say no more than a 10% chance that this actually happens, just using my guesstimation. But delusion's a hell of a drug, and we know that Jerry Jones likes to shoot for the stars.
It is, and the dead cap hit if they were to trade Dak Prescott, if Prescott would approve it, first and foremost, is $103 million. So it is substantial and would put Deion Sanders behind the 8 ball, obviously, as a head coach. And by the way, you talked about, you haven't seen him fail at anything. You're probably a little too young to remember his album in 1994, Primetime, released by MC Hammer's label at the time. It wasn't good, and I remembered it as you were speaking. I managed to get the review of it at the time from Rolling Stone. Quote, dual sports superstar Deion Sanders didn't bring the same game to the recording studio as he did to the playing field. It's not just for sports fans. It's not for anyone. So not the music career, but I get your point. For the most part, it's worked out for Deion Sanders. But I'm with you. I think this is leverage to get a better deal from Colorado, with the understanding that if Jerry Jones pulls off the impossible, that the nice thing for Deion Sanders is he can wait. Colorado will have that extension sitting out there for as long as he wants to leave it sitting out there. There is a good point. Shawn Keeler, who we had on the program last year, the Denver Post, said, if you're really committed to Colorado, sign the extension and prove it. I don't think Deion Sanders will. I think he will wait until, quite frankly, after the draft and see if Dallas can pull something off. And then he may be going to the Cowboys. But can the Cowboys afford to wait out the entire hiring cycle? Because if they end up not getting Shador Sanders and not getting Deion Sanders, now who are they getting? And that's a risk too. And if I were Deion Sanders, quite frankly, I would think about it and say, okay, this might not be the best move for me to win big in the NFL. If I'm doing this, it's just because I am going to get, as you say sometimes, a bag.
Yeah, no, exactly. And it's going to be interesting because I'm actually surprised that Jerry ended up moving off McCarthy, to be honest with you. I thought he would give him a grace period, and whatever it might be. So clearly Jerry's got something up his sleeve that he's working on. Is that Deion? Is that Ben Johnson? Is that a trade for Mike Vrabel? Is that a Godfather offer in front of Bill Belichick? I mean, I don't think the latter two are very realistic, but it is Jerry Jones who, when he wants something, he's going to do everything in his power to go ahead and get it. So look, like I said, if you're a Buff fan, I think you take a deep breath. Like, these are some of the theatrics that come with Coach Prime, right? It's the art of, I forget the exact word, but he likes to play things coy, close to the vest. And again, I don't think he's going, I think it's Colorado, Cowboys, or that's it. I don't think he's retiring by any stretch of the imagination. So we'll see. But again, I do think this is a leverage play. I think this is a popularity play. But I know a lot of people that would love to see Deion in Dallas. There's a lot of people on national media that have been clamoring for Deion to get out of Boulder, which I think is ridiculous. But at the end of the day, where is Deion? The big question, we've said it a couple times now, where is Deion Sanders' heart at without his kids playing at Colorado? That ultimately, if this was the conversation last year, I'd say there's 0% chance. But the fact that Shador and Travis and Shiloh are no longer there, I think opens up that door just a crack.
I think it does. And I think the money opens it up. I mean, I think it is a realistic possibility just because the money can be involved. But if I'm guessing Deion Sanders, what he finds that joy in, he's going to find some other sons like he did in Travis Hunter. Right. Maybe it's Julian Lewis. Maybe it's any of the recruits that he's brought in. I think that he will find that. And I think in the end, probably understands for the people who wanted to leave Colorado, there's no point. Colorado's in the catbird seat in the Big 12 as long as he's there. They'll have probably the most talented team in that conference every year with an automatic entrance into the college football playoff if they win the conference. So Colorado found an absolute sweet spot. I think Deion Sanders knows he's in it. And this would just be a money move. But I think even for the Bucs, worst case scenario, he takes the money and goes to the Dallas Cowboys. Is that a disaster for Colorado? Yeah, it is, but not as bad as you might think. Colorado's back on the map, and the position they're in has been identified. It would be a desirable coaching spot now as opposed to what it was before Sanders got there. The other thing is the perception is, as everyone, the second he got to Colorado, everyone's been trying to get him to leave on the national side to go to some other college, right? If the Buffs lose Deion Sanders to the Dallas Cowboys because Jerry Jones offers some crazy amount of money, that doesn't reflect badly on the Buffaloes. Every single university would go like, well, you have to take it. What are you going to do? And I think for Buffs fans more than anything, that was the embarrassment that maybe it's not really real and he's just using it as a stepping stone to go to another college. I don't think that's happening. I think it's the Cowboys or the Buffs. And if he goes to the Cowboys, it's because Jerry Jones had a dump truck of money. And what were you going to do about that? So I think for the Buffaloes, they end up one way or the other, even in the worst case scenario, looking pretty good in the deal. And that's important too.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And I think, Prime has taken Colorado's floor from way down below to, pretty respectable. And, if he were to depart, whatever it might be, Robert Livingston's a guy that would immediately come to mind, plenty of NFL experience. I agree with you. I think it would be an attractive job. To your point, the Big 12 is wide open right now. Like, there's not really a top dog ever since Oklahoma and Texas have kind of departed. I mean, Colorado was in it till the very end for that Big 12 championship game. So I think that regardless of what happens, and again, what I think is going to happen is Deion will sign a big money extension here in Colorado and be here for the next couple of years at least. But I agree. I think regardless, Colorado is now relevant in circles around college football, and that will have some trickle-down effect if he does indeed going somewhere else.
Yeah, it'll be fascinating to see how it happens, but I don't think for Buffs fans, the resolution will be quick. I think there will be a bunch of things that have to move into place first before that decision happens. So I think we're going to sweat this one out for a while here in Colorado and certainly up in Boulder, but it's fascinating. And obviously you want to follow Aniello and catch the SCO show during this entire process. They'll be up to date on every single part of a terrific program, just exploding all year, obviously. And Chase and Aniello do a tremendous job with it. So make sure you check that and follow them on social as well. And lots of events and fun things to keep an eye out in the future. So AP, always good to talk to you. Really appreciate it. This is going to be a fascinating story, but I mean, You're the host of a Buff show and you're a Cowboys fan. Who's better to talk to? Nobody. So it was great to be able to have you today. Thanks so much.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an interesting dynamic because I'm pulled in two different directions. I personally, as a fan, I wouldn't mind. I need to get off Dak Prescott. You know my feelings about that situation.
Good luck with that, by the way. We went over that math.
Yeah, no, it's not going to happen. And at the end of the day, man, Buffs are good for business. I love what's happening in Boulder. I love what Deion's been doing up there. So buckle up, man. This ain't going anywhere anytime soon, but I do expect that he'll be back at Colorado. So Shawn, appreciate y'all. As always, have a good show. We'll do it again soon.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it. Thanks, Aniello. Yes, it really is kind of interesting to see how it'll shake out, but it won't move quickly because Deion Sanders has the ability to wait. He has the contract that he's under with Colorado right now, and he has the opportunity to wait it out. That contract extension will sit there for as long as he wants. They're not going to take it off the table. There's no way the Buffs are going to say, hey, take it by date X or we're yanking it back. It's not going to happen. So you have to maybe wait for this hiring cycle to end, maybe even wait as long as the draft to see what the Cowboys can maneuver. But I agree with Aniello. In the end, he will probably come back to the Buffs, but it is going to be the Buffs or the Cowboys. And Jerry Jones' wild card energy and immense amount of money makes it pretty fascinating. So I do expect we'll sweat it out for a little bit as well. It's been a fun show today. We had an opportunity to talk about an awful lot of things. The Nuggets get back at it tonight against the Rockets. The Avalanche, by the way, won last night in overtime over the Rangers. Despite the win, Jared Bednar was very frustrated with the effort by the Avalanche as they continue to round into form with their new goaltenders, specifically, obviously, when you're looking at Mackenzie Blackwood, who's looked like absolutely everything the Avalanche needed. We'll keep on in touch with them as well as the season goes along. But thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it. Thanks to Dan Mormon for joining us. We'll catch him on Friday for the latest with Colorado Preps. Download that app, by the way, driven by Ford. While you've got it. Aniello Piro joining us as well, and Ryan Blackburn. Check out the Pickaxe and Roll podcast as soon as you can. If you're a Nuggets fan, you do not want to miss it. Great to talk to everybody like that today. Danny Bailey is the man that makes all of this work behind the scenes. None of it works without Danny, so thanks so much, but mostly thanks to you. However you choose to watch it, whether you're catching it this way on YouTube Live or you're catching it at your convenience, that's why we do it this way, so you can catch it when you want to catch it. Appreciate it. You know it. Like, subscribe. Yeah, if you missed any part, just drag that little bar back. You know the drill. You know that we'll be back at it tomorrow too. Every team, every day. That's the way we handle it at Mile High Sports for everyone at Mile High Sports. I'm Shawn Drotar. This is Mile High Sports Today.